Bonjour mes amis. This is the Yema Superman in its nice little box. Let's start from the box, shall we? Lovely handmade, I don't know if it's handmade, wooden box. Little hinges on the back. It's very handsome. A little bit of sort of velour stuff underneath. And Yema on the front, on the top. And it's really very well made little box. And inside we have the mythical Yema Superman. So let's take it from its little cushion. You get a little book. Not very exciting. It's got all the instructions. I'm going to show you actually because it kind of made me chuckle. So in here I've spent a fortune on this watch. Okay, and it's come in a beautiful box, and there's instructions, a little bit of information. The company is French, and they started in 1948, and so on and so forth. And here's the instructions for the watch, and here's the instructions for another watch, and another watch that I haven't got, another watch that I haven't got, another watch that I haven't got, and you get the message. This is just a generic booklet. Seems like a bit of a swizz, given I've spent over €1,000 getting this watch. They can't give me a special booklet for it. However, I didn't buy a booklet, I bought a watch. And the watch is the Yema, let's get these hands out of the way. It's the Yema Superman Heritage. Now, the significance of the word heritage is that this is not the original Superman from the 70s. This is a brand new model, which is an exact replica of the 1970s Superman. The advantage being it's brand new, so it's not vintage, it's not going to need servicing anytime soon or that often, and it's it's pristine, shiny, beautiful, brand new, and it works absolutely perfectly. Let's have a look at it in detail. As you can tell already, we're struggling to we're struggling to see because of the reflections, because it's such a domed sapphire crystal. Look at that beauty, absolutely fantastic. So it's a beautiful domed sapphire crystal. I don't think it's got any anti-reflective qualities because it reflects everything in its wake. It's lovely though. This is really, really nice. Now this is the 39mm version. There is a 41mm version as well, which is not what was available in the 70s. This is what was available in the 70s. So we're talking 39mm across there. What else? Well, whilst we're here, let's do some more measurements. It's a 19mm lug width, slightly unusual, and lug to lug is 48mm. So I went off camera a little bit, and the thickness is quite thick. It's sort of got steps to it. It doesn't look like it's one continuous piece. So we've got. I'm just going to tilt it away from the U for a sec. It's 11mm to the top of the bezel and 13 to the top of the crystal. So it's pretty thin actually for an automatic diver's watch. It's 11mm, then it's the domed crystal. So that's a pretty thin watch in my mind. Whilst we're here, let's have a little look at that signed crown. Pretty handsome. And it's a big chunky crown. There we go. I do apologise, folks. Oh dear, I've got a bit of a cold at the moment, and my camera seems to be following suit and being a bit rubbish. Back to the crown. Sorry, it's a big chunky crown. It's not sharp. It's smooth. The sign bit is really handsome. It unwinds smoothly because it's a automatic, so it's not hand winding. However, it does have hand winding in there. There we go. It's hand winding, and you pull it out to the various stops to set it. Now this is slightly if you're not familiar with Yemas, you might find this a bit odd. Can you see the crown just wobble slightly? That's absolutely normal. That's a Yema trait. A bit like the Russian watches, you know, scuba dudes and so on, they have wobbly crowns, so does this. But that's fine, that's what it's meant to do. Sorry, so I push that back in and it screws in an absolute treat. Whilst we've got it out, this is this little bit here is weird, isn't it? This is peculiar to Superman watches. So it's a lock for the bezel. So to turn the bezel, I need to undo the crown and loosen this little lock, and now I can turn the bezel. I'm not going to because it's a bit of a pain. Then you push the little locking bit back in, screw the crown back in, nice and snug, and there we go. Everything's nice and tight, and I can't turn the bezel. So it's a safety feature for when I'm going underwater. I set my bezel, and it's not going to get knocked underwater because of this little lock. However, in order to lock it, I have to unscrew the crown, and I'm near water presumably when I'm setting the bezel, so water could get it. To me, it seems a little bit odd, and the reason it's probably not a good idea is for what I've just said, and the fact that no other watch manufacturer does it suggests that it isn't really a good idea. However, I'm not one to turn bezels very often. I like my bezels perfectly aligned, so this is quite nice for me. It just locks it in place. I'm going to give it a little shake. I do apologise. It hasn't been running, has it? So we haven't seen it running, but it does work. Here we go. Let's have a little look at it ticking away. Now, some of the design features that distinguish the Superman from other Submariner type dive watches is this locking bezel mechanism thing here. That's unique to Yema. The other is this big arrow on the minute hand, and the other is this big spade affair on the second hand. Can you see that? That's absolutely glorious, isn't it? Huge big chunk of a spade thing sweeping round with a red dot on it, absolutely filled to the max with lume, and it's bright lume. It glows really well, and the indices are all thickly applied with lume, and both the hour and the minute hand obviously are as well, and there's a lume pip at 12 on the bezel. So it's a very loomy watch, which is very satisfying. Now, if we look down the bottom, it says France, so it is a made in France watch. However, it does have a Swiss Sellita SW200-1 movement. Basically an ETA kind of thing. ETA and Sellita are virtually interchangeable these days, apparently. I'm not a movement expert. You may know better than me. Comment below if you know more about these things. So we've got a date window at 3, outlined with a white box. So black on white date. Nothing unusual going on there. Let's have a little tour of the watch. The bezel has got a very nice sort of coin edge to it. It's flat bezel there with the insert. The sides of the watch are polished, highly polished. The back of the watch, let's flip the clasp open so we can have a good look at the back, has deeply engraved Yema logo. They have so many different logos. The Y, this curly Y, is one of them. This more blocky Y is another one. On the watch, it's the curly Y, because that's what the 70s watch used to have. On the crown, it's the curly Y. On the more modern Yemas, it's the chunky block why. Anyway, on the back we've got the crest and the logo and a little bit of information. So it says fabriqué en France, tout acier, all steel, étanche 30 bar, so it's 300-meter water resistance, and Superman. So 300 meters equates to 990 feet. Now, why it's in feet must be an international thing, because the French don't have feet. Oh, obviously the French have feet, otherwise they're not going to be able to walk around. But they don't use the measurement feet. They use meters. So there must be something about that. I don't know the details. The bracelet is really nice, very sturdy. It's got little screws. Sorry, I'm covering it with my fingers. It's got little screw heads in there to change, so that makes it relatively straightforward. The clasp has a wetsuit extension, which works well. Let's put it on, shall we? So this is I've got a 7.5-inch wrist, and that's the 39mm Yema Superman on there. I think that looks really good. I'd get away with the 41mm, I'm sure, but to my eyes, that's just ideal. And the bracelet is very comfortable. I think it tapers. Does it taper? I'm just going to quickly measure the bracelet. So it starts at 19, and then that is 17. So it does taper slightly, and it's a nice clasp. Folds over, flips open. It's good and sturdy. There's no sharp edges to it. It's a well-made bracelet and clasp. I'm pleased with that. It's got solid end links, drilled lugs for ease of swapping them out. It's good. It's a good bracelet. My only gripe with it is that it doesn't match the watch. So we've got a polished watch and a satin bracelet, and they don't quite. It doesn't quite line up at the lug there. That sort of thing kind of bothers me, especially on a watch of this value, over €1,000. But hey, these things fade away after a while, don't you? After you fall in love with different aspects, you forgive it other elements. And the things to fall in love with are the beautiful dial. And it is a beautiful dial. It really is. Those circular indices, the long isosceles triangle, the big chunky rectangle at 6, the beautiful hands, that incredible second hand, the thin bezel gives us a skin diver feel. There's a lot to love, and it's, it keeps good time. Of course it does. It's a beauty. That, my friends, is the Yema Superman. A fantastic, vintage inspired re-edition, I would call it. Highly recommended. If you like this video, I'd love it if you click like, and even more than that, click subscribe, because I do more than watches. I do EDC and I do knives. Have a look around my channel. You'll see some other videos that you might find interesting. Please comment and I'll join in with you if you want to have a chat about any aspect of this watch. Otherwise, thank you very much. I'll see you soon.